Well, as you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy. Today's class is on using Windows tools for troubleshooting. So if your computer, it's not working as fast as you would like, if it's crashing, if you're getting something called a blue screen of death, if for whatever reason your computer, your Windows PC is not working the way you want it to, Windows has a lot of built-in tools to help you try to A, figure out what's going on, and then B, try to fix a lot of problems. So many times problems with your PC can be fixed simply by understanding how to use these tools. You don't have to go out and spend $50 or $100 on any other type of software. You just need to use what's already built in to the computer. This class will show you how to use these tools. We'll talk about things like safe mode and system restore, task manager, hard drive space, startup services, computer management, and a couple of other things. So just give me 1 second. We'll get into this class. All these little tools are really simple to use, and if you understand how to use them and what they're used for, you can fix just a tremendous amount of problems with your PC. So the first two tools that I want to talk about are kind of like the wait, I didn't want to do that tools. These are called, one is called safe mode and the other one is called system restore. So let's talk about system restore first. Now let's imagine that you install a piece of software onto your computer and then it just does something stupid to your computer. Your computer does not work properly anymore. Or you get a virus on your computer. You let your nephew come and use your computer for a night and all of a sudden there are viruses or there are just problems with it. Well, you can use this tool called system restore to go back to a different point in time for your computer. So basically what you do is you go into system restore and then you say, I want to go back to how my computer was 3 days ago or 4 days ago or 5 days ago or a month ago or 2 months ago. Basically, as your computer is doing the stuff that it does, it creates something called system restore points. And these system restore points have configuration information about the computer as it was whenever that restore point was created. So many times you can just get a do-over. You can say, something happened to your computer. You go in, you use system restore, and it will restore the computer to how it was whenever the restore point was created. So like I say, whether it was 2 days ago, whether it was 2 months ago, you can go back to that period in time. Now this does not destroy your documents, your pictures, your documents, your videos, any of that, it does not affect. What it does affect is if you installed software, so if you installed Office on your computer, or if you installed antivirus software, if you do a system restore, that will be gone. So, good or bad on that one. The next tool that we should talk about is something called safe mode. So what happens is with safe mode is, let's say you install stuff onto your computer. You install a new network card or you install a new piece of software. And then again, for some reason, it doesn't work properly. The computer gives you blue screens of death or it just freezes up. Well, what you can do is you can go into safe mode. And what safe mode is basically it's a stripped down version of the operating system. So your antivirus software does not load. All of your startup programs do not load. You get the basic hardware drivers for your computer. You don't get everything. The idea with this is, let's say you install, like I say, that piece of software, that piece of hardware, and when the computer boots up, it just crashes your computer. Well, what you can do is you can boot into safe mode. It won't boot up, the antivirus software, the anti-malware software, or the hard drive drivers. And you can go in and you can try to change configurations and see if you can fix the computer in safe mode. So those are the first two tools we're going to talk about. System restore. System restore goes back in time to wherever restore point was created, and safe mode simply allows you to boot into the computer without all of the other extraneous stuff starting up when your computer starts up. And then once you're in, you can go in and try to fix any problems that you can find. So to show you how this works, we'll go on the computer and I'll just do a really quick demonstration of how you'll use this. So I'm going to use this basic Windows 7 professional computer to show you how to do everything today. Everything that I show you today, this can be done on a Windows 7 computer, can be done on a Windows Vista computer, Windows XP computer, Windows 2000 professional computer. Most of these tools are available even on the servers, so 2008 server, 2003 server, 2000 server, etc. So these tools that I'm showing you really are the core tools that are used to administer and maintain Windows computers of all types. So right now, let's show you the system restore and safe mode. So as I said before, system restore basically allows you to go back in time. So if you installed, you installed something and it kind of messed up your system, you can go back to a previous restore point. All you have to do for system restore is you go down to your little start button or a little circle here. If you're using Vista or 7, you can just type in restore, and system restore will show up as one of the programs. If you're using Windows XP, you actually have to go to start programs and accessories, and you'll find system restore there. If you are dealing with 2000, system restore was not part of that. So system restore works for XP and later. So all you do is you see the system restore, you click on the link, you just hit next. And this is showing you restore points when you can go back to. So you see 517 at 157, 517 at 150, 517 at 149. I can show more restore points. That's not giving me any more restore points. So basically all you would do to restore would be to select one of these. So I could select one of these. I click next, and then I click finish. And if I clicked finish, what would happen is this would go back, it would restore this computer, all the software, all the programs to how it was at on the 17th at 149. So this is a really easy way to go back. Like I say, it affects programs, but it doesn't affect documents. So if you create a document in Word, it will still be there. Word, if you just installed it, may not be, if that makes any sense. I don't want to go through all this, so I can just click cancel. So that is system restore. That is how you restore to a previous point in time. Now what we're going to do is, let's say we messed everything up and we want to go into safe mode for this computer. All we need to do is go to start, and then we'll just kind of restart the computer. Now, when the computer is booting up after it goes past the BIOS screen, you need to start pressing F8 continuously to get safe mode. So now you see you get these advanced boot options. You get safe mode. There's safe mode with networking, safe mode with command prompt, boot logging. They now have a whole bunch of different options. The main one that you will worry about is safe mode. So all you do is you go down and you hit safe mode. So this is only loading the basic processes and programs that you need for Windows to work properly. In safe mode, you should realize that many times you cannot install pieces of software because the right processes haven't been started for you to install software. So this is like going in and you can, changing a registry edit. So maybe something starting in the registry that you don't want to start. So you change a registry edit, you could delete files, you could create files, that type of thing. So now when it boots up into safe mode, you get this little thing telling you what safe mode is. We'll just close that out. The one thing you'll notice is at the four corners it actually says safe mode. So it'll tell you, Microsoft Windows, build 7600, safe mode, safe mode, safe mode. So now in here I have a graphical interface. I can go in, I can try to edit the registry
if I needed to, etc. So this is basically just something so you can go into the base of the operating system and try to fix if there's any problems. And that's all there is to it. So since I've shown you System Restore and I've shown you Safe Mode, let's go back out to the real world and we'll talk about Task Manager.
See, that wasn't too difficult. You know, Safe Mode and System Restore. That's pretty simple to do. So the next tool I want to talk to you about is Task Manager. So what is Task Manager? Task Manager allows you to see how much RAM you're using and how much processor you're using. So it shows you, you only have a certain amount of CPU cycles. So it shows you how much of that are you using. Are you using 80% of your CPU's capacity? Are you using 50%? Are you using 100%? You know, with your RAM, are you using half the amount of RAM that you have, or are you using more than the amount of RAM you have? If you're using, it's called pegging out, like with the CPU. If you peg out your CPU, if you use 100% of your CPU, your computer will not function properly, basically because all of the CPU resources are being taken up, and so the computer can't do all of the things that it needs to do. If you're using all of your RAM plus some, the computer does still work, but it will slow down. It'll move to a crawl. So you need to see, I mean, do you need to upgrade your RAM? Maybe you have a gig of RAM in your computer and you can go into Task Manager and see you're using 1.5 gigs of RAM. Might be a problem. The other thing you can use with Task Manager, which is very nice, is there's a pane to show you what applications are open, and you can close or force close applications that are open. So let's say Outlook has frozen on you. You can open up Task Manager and actually kill the Outlook application. So it'll close entirely. Also, you can go in and you can see what processes are started on the computer and try to shut them down if need be. Processes are basically like really small programs. Like imagine Outlook. Outlook is a big program. Outlook requires a number of processes to work properly. So Outlook is a big program that's composed of little programs. So the little programs are those processes. Well, you can go in and on the Process tab of Task Manager, you can see what processes are currently running, how much CPU they're using, and how much memory. So you might find out that one of these applications is using all of your memory. And then you can decide, do you really want to upgrade your RAM, or do you simply want to stop using this particular application? So Task Manager is just, it's a go-to tool. If I sit down at a computer and somebody's having a problem with the computer, the first thing I do is open up Task Manager, because what I want to see is the computer using all the CPU resources? Because if it's pegging out at 100%, well, that's a problem. And is it using all of the RAM? So, you know, if like I say, if there's only 512 worth of RAM in the computer or 1 gig of RAM and it's using more than that, that may be a very big problem. So with that, let's go on the computer. I'll show you how to use Task Manager. Again, this is something that it's just very simple to use, and once you see how it works, it's just easy.
So now we're back at the basic Windows 7 screen. Now with Task Manager, to know, you should know how much RAM and what kind of processor your computer has before you open up Task Manager. An easy way to find that out is you just go down to the Start button, you go to My Computer, you right-click, and then you go to Properties. When the properties come up, this will show you what kind of processor you have and will show you how much RAM you have. So on this system, I have an Intel i7 processor, which is pretty good right now, and I have 0.98 gigs of RAM. It'll also tell me what type of operating system I have. So Windows 7 Professional is what is installed. So this will give you some base information so that when you open up Task Manager, you kind of know what you're looking at. So now that we know we have a Windows 7 Professional computer, we have an Intel Core i7 processor, and we have 1 gig of RAM, we can open Task Manager. So all you do is you go down to the little taskbar down here at the bottom, you right-click, and then you do Start Task Manager. So now when Task Manager opens up, it'll start on applications. So this is where I was talking to you before about this shows you what programs are actually running right now. So if we go in, let's say we start Google Chrome, and we look at Task Manager, we will now see Google Chrome. Like I say, let's say Google Chrome crashes for some reason, it's not working properly. If I need to shut Google Chrome down, and you can see it in the back over here, if you want to shut it down, you can right click and then you can do end task. If you end task, it will kill that application. So you do end task and see, it's gone. So if, let's say, if Google Chrome had frozen up, or if Outlook had frozen up, or Word, or any piece of software, you can go into the application, right click, and do end task. The next tab is processes. So these are all the little individual processes that are working on your computer that make up the bigger the bigger programs. So you can see DWM, Explorer.exe, all this search protector, VBbox, all of these things. And you can see how much of both the CPU and the memory they're using. So you can sort by CPU, and you can see the different things as they're using CPU. Or you can sort by memory usage and see the different things that are using up memory. So this search, whatever that is, search protocol host is using 1,452 kilobytes. So if that was using too much, let's say that one of these services was using, I don't know, a gig of memory or just 100 megs of memory, and you didn't want that to happen, again, you can right click on it and you can go down and you can do end process, and that will kill the process entirely. Also, here is where you can see if you have any weird viruses on your computer. Since even viruses can work as processes, you can go in and you can look at the different processes and then do a Google search about them. So if you're worried, csrss.exe, what is that? You could actually do a Google search on that and see if it's good or bad. It's probably fine, but it could be a virus. Then you go in Windows 7 and Vista, they have services. This we'll show this to you later. But then we go to performance. So this is how we see how your computer is functioning. So we look at the CPU usage. As you can see right now, basically this computer is using 0% of CPU. Let's tacking up to 23 and then back down again. If I came in and this CPU was at 100%, this computer would be having a lot of problems, because if the computer is running at 100%, it literally means that there's no more CPU resources to go around. So if you try to open up another program, it's just really bad. Then down below the CPU usage, you see memory or RAM. So right now it's using 502 megs of RAM. So since I have a gig of RAM on this computer, that's fine. If this computer only had 256 megs of RAM and it was trying to use 502, obviously you would need to upgrade the RAM. Or if this right here was saying that, again, it was using, let's say, 1.3 gigs of RAM, this computer only has 1 gig of RAM, that would mean I would need to upgrade the RAM on the computer. And that's really all there is to Task Manager. So in order to get to Task Manager, you just right click down here on the taskbar, you do Start Task Manager. The Applications tab shows you the applications that are currently running, Outlook, Word, etc. Processes, these are the smaller programs that run to make an application big. So you've got Explorer.exe, you can see Task Manager, all this stuff. Over here it shows you how much resources they're using, so CPU, memory, etc. We can go to performance, and this is the big one. Like I say, every time I sit down at a computer, this is what I look at, is the CPU usage. If this is up at 100%, that means this computer has problems. So either you need to do a major tune-up on the computer, or you need to buy a new computer. But if the CPU is up at 90 to 100%, this computer has problems. And then memory, again, if the number here is bigger than the amount of memory that you have on your system, then you just need to upgrade the RAM. That's pretty simple. So that's all there is to Task Manager. Let's go back out in the real world.
See, nothing much to Task Manager. Once you understand how to use it, again, really simple tool, not too complicated. So the next thing we need to talk about is making sure your hard drive is okay. So if your hard drive isn't working properly, of course your computer is not going to work properly. So Windows has built-in tools to allow you to see what's going on with your hard drive. The first thing that you should remember is however big your hard drive is, you should have at least 10% of the hard drive space free for your computer to work properly. So if you have a 100 gig hard drive, 10 gigs should be free space. If you go less than 10 gigs of free space, you could start to have problems. So we see this a lot, out in the real world. For some reason, things like log files or temporary files will all of a sudden start clogging up somebody's computer. Or they'll plug in an iPod and they'll do like a little synchronization, and they don't realize that the iPod has 200 gigs of music and their computer only has an 80 gig hard drive. Well, what happens is all the music goes onto the computer, but then the computer doesn't have enough free space on the hard drive to do all the stuff that it needs to do, and then things just slow to a crawl or they crash. So when you're dealing with your hard drive, remember you need at least 10% free space. So if you have an 80 gig hard drive, you need 8 gigs of storage free on that hard drive. If you have a terabyte hard drive, you need 100 gigs free. The reason is just Windows needs a lot of little temporary files, and it needs to be able to write stuff and read stuff from the disk, and if you don't have 10% free, well, it all goes bad. Fortunately, Microsoft has a nice little tool built in to allow you to see how much free space is on your hard drive, and then to try to clean out all the temporary files that may be on the hard drive, and that's clogging things up. It also does error checking and a couple of other things. So let's go on to the computer, and I'll show you the tools that are built in to allow you to deal with your hard drive on the Windows operating system.
So we're back at the Windows 7 screen, and I'll show you how to use the hard drive tools. So to use the tools, for defragmenting the hard drive or cleaning up the hard drive, all you do is you go down to the little start, little circle, and you go to Computer, or My Computer if you're using one of the other operating systems, and you will see your hard drives. So we just right-click on your hard drive and then go to Properties. Again, this is the same. This is how it's been, I think, since Windows 95. So any Windows computer you're using will use this. And this now shows you information about your hard drive. So it shows you that the entire capacity of the hard drive is 19.8 gigs. The used space is 9.64 gigs, and the free space is 10.2 gigs. So it shows you the total size, how much is used, is how much is free. Now, let's say, since this is a 20 gig hard drive, remember I have to have at least 2 gigs free for this computer to work properly. If there were less than 2 gigs free, you can go down to this tool called Disk Cleanup. Disk Cleanup is going to try to clean out all of the temporary files and all the files on your system that you probably don't need, like downloaded program files, temporary internet files, offline web pages, the recycle bin. Like many people don't realize, when you throw something away in the computer, it goes into the recycle bin. That still takes up storage space until you empty the recycle bin. You have log files, temporary files, etc. So what you can do here is these little check boxes by whatever item it is. You can either check it or uncheck it, and then you would do clean up system files. If you click on clean up system files, then it'll go through and it'll totally delete all those files. Again, like I said, I've seen that be a big problem with the recycle bin. So where I talked about before, if you have an iPod and you connect it to your computer, and then it tries to sync all that data to your computer, well, you go in and you try to delete all the music, but you're still having problems with the computer. The reason is because you only moved those files to the recycle bin. You haven't gotten rid of them entirely. So if you had that problem, you would need to delete all the files and then go into disk cleanup and actually try to have it be so that the recycle bin gets emptied. We'll just click cancel now. Then the other tools that you have, if you go up here to tools, you have error checking. So this is the old check disk or scan disk. This will look to see if there's any problems on the hard drive. Do you have bad sectors, etc. And then you have defragment now, or their defragment tool. If you click on this, it'll go through and it'll try to defragment the hard drive. So fragmentation is where you have data spread all willy-nilly all over your hard drive, and that can cause problems. It can slow down your computer. So if you defragment your hard drive, what that does is it tries to pull all of the data into clumps onto your computer, so it's easier to read. But that's really all there is for the hard disk tools. Again, you just right-click on the hard disk that you're dealing with. You go to Properties. It'll show you the total capacity, the use space, the free space. If you want to do a disk cleanup, you just click on disk cleanup. It goes through the routine, and that's about it. So with that, let's go back out to the real world and talk about startup services.
So that's all there is to maintaining your hard drive with the Windows operating system. The next thing that we should talk about is startup services and startup programs. This is the bane of our existence nowadays. So what are startup services and startup programs? Well, all these manufacturers of software like Adobe and QuickBooks and everybody else. Well, when you start a piece of software for the first time, it takes a little while for that piece of software to load entirely. So these companies like Adobe or QuickBooks and such, they want their software to load faster, so it seems like it's opening quicker to you, the user. So what they do is when your computer boots up, they actually start up a little bit of the application when your computer boots up. So you'll notice like there'll be like Adobe Helper or QuickBooks Helper that boots up when your computer boots up. This is fine and dandy if you don't have too many of these pieces of software starting when your computer boots up. What happens now is, since all of the software vendors do this, you have lots and lots and lots of pieces of software that try to start up when your computer starts up. And then all of a sudden, you're using all of your RAM and you're using all of your CPU resources for these programs that you're not actually using. Because let's say, like with QuickBooks, you may open QuickBooks once a day, you may open QuickBooks once a week, but the startup program is there so that it's always using resources from your computer. Again, with Adobe, you may use it once a day, once a week, but what Adobe does is they install this little piece of startup software so that as soon as your computer starts, Adobe starts using those resources, RAM, CPU, etc. Now again, you get too many of these and all of a sudden you're using all of your resources for these applications that you're not actually using right now. So there's a couple of ways to deal with this. There's a tool that I'm going to show you called MSConfig. MSConfig allows you to selectively decide what services and programs will start up when your computer starts up. We can go into the registry, so I'll show you how to clean out the registry files that tell Windows to start up certain programs. And then there's a startup folder, which is really easy. It's just you go to Start Programs and there's something called the startup folder. And basically, any link in that startup folder is triggered whenever the computer boots up. So the computer will boot up, it'll look in the startup folder, and if something is there, then it will start the program. So again, this gets a little more complicated, so you're gonna have to follow me when we go into the computer. But again, it's pretty simple. So I'll show you the MSConfig, the registry, and the startup folder.
So we're back to the Windows 7 home screen. So the first tool that I want to show you how to use for getting rid of these startup services or seeing if they're causing problems is something called MSConfig. So to use MSConfig, all you do is you go down to Start, and then in either the Run box or this whatever it's now called box, you type in MSConfig, MSConfig, and just press enter. And now you get this MSConfig utility that gives you a number of options. There's a basic startup selection, so you can either do a normal startup. This will load all devices, device drivers and services. You can do a diagnostic startup, load basic devices and services, or you can select what you want to start when the computer starts. Most people will only use this one startup tab. If you noticed here, these are services that are started when the computer starts up. So you have VirtualBox, you have Microsoft Security Essentials, Google Update, Adobe Acrobat, etc. If I didn't want one of these services to start when the computer starts, I could simply uncheck the box and hit OK, and that service will not start up. So if you think you're having a problem with one of these services that's been installed, you can unselect it using this tool, and then when you restart the computer, that service won't start when the computer starts up. You also have the ability to enable all and disable all. There's actual services here, so within this tool you could select which services you want to start or not start, server, workstation, TCP/IP, net, BIOS helper. Under services, be very, very, very careful. You have to understand what you're doing for this to go well. If you start unchecking here all willy-nilly, this will cause major, major problems for you. So startup, the startup tab, you can do anything you want in here. It's probably not going to do a lot of damage to you. Under the services, if you just start playing with this willy-nilly, it could cause a lot of problems for you. And that's really about all there is to MSConfig. Basically, it just allows you to go in, look at some of the things that start up on your computer, and then selectively be able to disable them. Now that you've seen that, there are things that start up on the computer because your registry tells them to start up. And so if you don't want to selectively disable them, if you want to just totally get rid of them altogether, then you actually go into the registry and you edit it. So to do that, we go down to Start again, and either in Run or this box, we do reg, R-E-G, edit, E-D-I-T. And this is the registry editor. It'll ask you, do you really want to run it? Yes, yes. So now we're in the registry editor. I was in this before. So when you first come into it, what you're going to do is you're going to go to H key, local machine, and then you're going to go to Software. Then you're going to go to Microsoft. Scroll down. Then you're going to go to Windows. Then you're going to go to Current Version. And then you're going to go to Run. So when the machine starts up, these are the pieces of software that start with it. So as we can see, Microsoft Security Essentials and VBox Tray. If I wanted to delete these, all I would do is I would select it and I would click Delete. If I delete it, then these pieces of software will not start up when the computer starts up. You should also go up to H key, Current User, and go to the same place. So you go to H key Current User, Software, Microsoft, Windows, Current Version, Run, and you'll see here also has it's telling the computer to start Google Update when the computer starts up. So if you didn't want Google Update to start, you can just right click and you can say delete, and then you say yes. When you go in to computers where people are really complaining about problems, really complaining about being them slow and all of that, sometimes you'll see 20 or 30 items here. So that's why it's a problem. This is a pretty new, pretty clean computer, so there's not a lot in here. But if it's a computer that's been running for 4 or 5 years and you open this up, in all seriousness, you may see 20 or 30 different programs that are started up when the computer starts up. And all you do to get them to stop starting up is you just highlight them and then you just hit delete. You do that and they won't start up with the computer anymore. The one caution I will say in here is do not delete for virus or anti-malware software, because of course you want that software to start when the computer starts up. And be very careful about deleting printer, anything that has to do with printers. HP in particular needs to have these little markers in the registry in order for the printer to work right. So if you see anything in here about HP printers or Lexmark printers or such, I would say probably don't delete those. If you see QuickBooks, if you see Adobe, if you see all the other crap that you're going to see in here, delete all of that. Just don't delete anything for antivirus or anti-malware software or anything for printers that can cause you problems. And also, I know this is a lot to remember, so I will put the path to these registry keys down in the notes when we're done. So since we've now seen the registry, the final thing is the startup folder. So all the startup folder is a little folder where you go to Start, All Programs, and then Startup. All this is a little folder, and anything in the folder gets started when the computer starts up. So right now I have in there Adobe Reader 9. So if this computer boots up, Adobe Reader 9 will start. All you do to stop this from happening is you right-click on the startup folder and you hit Open. So this opens that startup folder as an actual folder, and then you just right-click and you hit Delete. You say yes, and now Adobe will no longer start when the computer starts up. So that's really all there is to controlling the startup processes. If you want to use MSConfig, it's MSConfig. You can go in and selectively decide what you want to start or not start. This can be a very useful tool. If you want to get rid of these startup files altogether, you can go into the registry. In the registry, you can delete all the keys in there, and that will keep things from starting up. And then you go to the startup folder under Start Programs, Startup folder, go in there and delete any links or programs in there. You do those things, and that is basically all you have to do to clean up your startup routines. So with that, let's go back out to the real world.
So that's what you do to clean up all those startup routines. You go in, you just clean those things out, and I guarantee you, if you do that, your computer's going to start running better like today. As soon as you do that, your computer will start running better. So the next thing we need to talk about is something called computer management. So this is a whole suite of tools that are built into Windows to allow you to manage the system. So basically, as I'll show you, you go in, you right-click My Computer, you select Manage, and then you're presented with all of these tools. The first tool that I'll show you is something called Event Viewer. This is the log file for your computer system. So this, every time something happens to your computer, it gets logged here. And so if there are errors or if there are problems, you can go into Event Viewer and see the errors or problems. This may tell you what's going wrong with your computer, why you're having problems. The next tool is something called Local Users and Groups. This is where you can go in on a business class computer and you can change, you can create users, you can change passwords, you can create groups, and you can change groups. So if you want to change permissions and stuff, that would be one of the places you go to do that. Or if you log in as an administrator and somebody has forgotten their password, you can go in and reset their password from there. The next thing is Device Manager. Device Manager shows you how the operating system looks at all the hardware on the computer. So if you're having a problem getting on the internet, it may be Comcast or maybe your internet provider, it may be a virus, or it may be that the driver for your network card is not installed properly. So when you go into Device Manager, you can see if your devices are installed properly, and if not, you can update your the drivers for your hardware from there. The last tool that we're going to talk about, or the second last tool, is something called disk management. This shows you how the computer sees the hard drives that are on your system. So if you go in, and this happens a lot, you buy a Sony or Hewlett Packard computer, they tell you you have a 250 gig hard drive, but when you go and you look at the hard drive space, it's only 120 gigs. The reason is because they created a 120 gig partition on a 250 gig hard drive. So if you want to use that extra 130 gigs of space, you have to create a new partition so that you can use it. Again, I'll show you how all that's done. And then finally, the services section of computer management. This shows you all the services that start when the computer starts up. So things like, does VPN client start up? Does remote desktop or terminal services start up? You can go in there, and so if you're having a problem with a computer, if you're trying to do remote desktop to that computer, possibly the terminal services service has been disabled. So in the services area, you can set services to start automatically, you can set them to start manually, or you can disable them. So imagine if you have a computer and you want that computer to be very secure, you don't want something like terminal services running. So you could go in and you could disable terminal services right from the services screen. So those are the tools. So it's computer management. We'll do event viewer, which is the log files for the system. Local users and groups. These are users and permissions for the system. Device manager. This is hardware on the computer. Disk management. This is how the hard drives are seen by the computer, partitioning, formatting, and such. And then services. These are the services that start up with your computer, or this is where you change how the services start up. So you can have them start up automatically, manually, or disable them altogether. So with that, let's go to the computer, and I'll show you how these work.
So we're back to the main screen, the home screen on Windows 7, and let's show you this computer management. So computer management, again, is the core, or one of the main tools you'll use for managing and administering a Windows computer. So all you need to do is you need to go down to Start, and then right-click Computer or My Computer, and then click Manage. This is basically the same again from Windows 2000 all the way up to now. So it used to be like My Computer and you right-clicked it, but now it's just Computer. You right-click it and then you hit Manage. Once you've done that, you will then get this screen, and so these are the core administrative tasks for this computer. You will see Task Scheduler. We won't go into that in this class, but this is where you can actually schedule tasks to happen on your computer. We have Event Viewer. So Event Viewer is what I was telling you before. These are the logs for the computer. So we can go down to Application Logs, and no, there's nothing in there. We go to Security Logs, and we can see Audit Success. So this is people that have actually been logging into this computer. We can go down to System, and this is information. So it shows different things that has been happening on this computer. Now if you get the white little I, that's just informational. It just tells you, that it's happening. Now if you get this red exclamation mark, this means there's a problem. So if you right click, or you can actually just double click, you can see what it's saying. So it's saying the IP helper service depends on the network store interface service, which failed to start. Just so you understand, there are always, it's Windows, Microsoft products, there are always going to be errors in here, and there are always going to be problems. So don't worry about these kind of problems if you don't see that you're having a problem. So if you think your computer is running fine, you kind of ignore these. What happens is, let's say with this IP helper service, let's say your network, your internet service isn't working right, or it's not working very well. That's where you would go in and you would look at the event properties and see if there are any problems. And this it might say that it's not getting a DHCP address from something. It might say that there's a problem. When you see these problems, you can then go and Google search and see what the solution is. So with this, like I said, there's a lot of different errors here. You You just double click on the error, decom got error 1084. So if I was having problems with this computer, I would then use this to then Google and try to find out what the solution is. With the error logs, you have application error logs, you have security error logs, setup logs, system logs, and whatever forwarded events is. But these are the main ones. So basically application, security, and system. If it's just white with a little information, then don't really worry about it. It just happened. If you see a little yellow exclamation mark, it means that there might be a problem. It thinks that there might be a problem. And if you see a red, it means that there is definitely a problem. Just remember with those red definite problem errors is if you don't notice that there's a problem, don't worry about it. You only worry about those if you actually notice that there is a problem. So past event viewer, we then go to local users and groups. So this is what controls the user accounts and the groups on this computer. So if we go to users, we'll see administrator, guest, home group, and user. And then if we go to groups, we see all of the different groups that are on the computer: administrators, backup operators, guests, the whole 9 yards. We'll do a whole class on users and groups, but this basically just gives you an idea about them at this point. So if we need to administer a user, all you do is you right click on the user, and then from here you can do a number of things. So here I could set the password. So if I was the administrator for this computer and this person had forgotten their password, I could set it to a new password right here. I could delete the user. I could rename the user. You can also go into properties, and this gives you a few more options. You can put in the full name of the person. You can say the user cannot change password. You can disable account. The big thing in here, though, is you'll go to member of. So this shows you what groups this user is a member of. So this user is a member of the administrators and the home users. So as a member of the administrators group, this person is able to install software and do a lot of things on the computer. So imagine that this is a computer where you want the people to be able to install software on. You would go in to this person's user account, and then you would make them a member of the administrators group, and they will now be able to do things like install software. But imagine you're having a real problem with users installing software, and you don't want them to be able to install software. You could go in here and highlight the administrators group and remove. Now this user, so this person that we're looking at right now, will no longer be able to install software on the computer. And it's really that easy. So that's all there is to the local users and groups. Again, we'll have a much bigger class on permissions and all that, but this is a basic thing. Just remember, in order to reset the password, you right click and you do set password, and if you need to make them a member of a group, you just go into properties, you go to member of, and then you click add to make them a member of a group. We then go down to Device Manager. So Device Manager shows you the hardware on your computer and what's going on. So most of this is fine. We see down here that there's a little yellow exclamation mark by the multimedia audio controller. So if I was having a problem with the speakers on my computer, it might be that I haven't installed the sound card properly. To fix this problem, you can just right click and you can do update driver software. So if you click on update driver software, you can either tell it to search automatically, so it'll go onto the internet and try to search for the software or the driver for the hardware, or you can do browse my local computer and manually tell it where the driver is. Again, you have to kind of understand what device drivers are, but if you do, that's all you do to fix that problem. So if you see that there's a problem with one of your pieces of hardware, just right click and you can do update driver, and that will hopefully update the driver for you. You can also from here disable and enable pieces of hardware. So like with some computers, they have a real problem where if you leave both network cards operational, that you get weird problems getting on the network. So a lot of these new motherboards have 2 network ports built into them. Well, if they're not actually both connected and you leave one, if you just leave one enabled, it can cause problems. So you can actually go in and for these different adapters and such, you could actually right click and you could do disable, and that would basically turn off the piece of hardware for the computer system. So let's say you have a laptop computer and you have it plugged into the local network. Well, you keep getting all these little bubbles telling you about, wireless network found, but you don't want to connect to the wireless network. You could right click on the wireless network card and disable it. If you did that, then it stops functioning altogether and you would no longer get those little bubbles. So that's Device Manager. The next tool is Disk Management. If we just select this, this tells us how the computer sees the hard drives that are sitting on the computer. So disk 0, so this is telling you the actual disk, and then it tells you how it's partitioned. So we have a 100 meg restore partition, and then we have the C drive, which is 19.9 gigs. From here, if there was extra space, you can right click. You can do things like change the drive letter. You could format the partition. You could extend the partition and shrink the partition, etc. Again, this is probably one we needed another class on, but I just want to show you that this exists. So like I say, if you were told that your hard drive should be 250 gigs or 500 gigs, but you only have let's say 120 gigs worth of storage that you can see, it might be because disk management doesn't see the rest of the hard drive. All you would have to do is go in here, create a new partition, format the partition, and you would have more space for your hard drive. The final tool is Services. So if we go down to Services, this shows you all the individual services that are started when the computer starts up. So let's see. So it shows you ActiveX installer, application experience, branch cache, all this stuff. Disk defragmenter, DHCP client, etc. So if you're having problems with the network, is the DNS client actually started? Is the DHCP client actually started? You can double click on these individual services. It'll tell you about the service, and then it also tells you the startup type. So if you wanted to really play with people, you can actually disable the DHCP client service. If you did that, then this computer would no longer be able to receive IP addresses. It shows you things like dependencies. These are services that depend on this service to work, etc. So these are services. Again, don't play with them too much, but understand that they are here. Depending on what problems you're having with your computer, this may be the problem, especially, if the computer has been used by somebody else for a couple of years, they may have done something stupid, and because of them shutting off one of these services, that might be the issue that you're dealing with. But that's really all there is to computer management. Like I say, all you do is you go to Start, you right click Computer or My Computer, and then select Manage. From here, you have Event Viewer, you have Local Users and Groups, you have Device Manager, Disk Management, and Services. These are very important tools for being able to manage and maintain your system, and you should get comfortable with them regardless. So with that, let's go out and have some final thoughts and talk about what to do from here.
So those are the basic built-in tools you can use for troubleshooting a Windows computer. Like I say, these are very useful. These are very good tools that I always use, especially like Task Manager. Whenever I sit down at a client's computer, I just quickly open Task Manager just so I have an idea of how the computer is running. If they bring you in for a printer problem, you can open up Task Manager and you can see if they're having other issues. You can hopefully fix some other issues while you're there, and 2, of course, you can upsell, what you can do for the client. I know I'm here for the printer, but I see your CPU is maxing out. Would you like me to do a tune-up for your computer? But again, all these tools are very simple to use, and you just need to use them if you're going to be maintaining Windows computers. We talked about safe mode. So safe mode is, let's say you install a driver onto your computer, or if you install an application and then your computer starts acting wacky. You can press F8 while the computer is booting up. You go into safe mode, and safe mode basically it doesn't start up all the applications that normally get started up when a computer boots. It doesn't use all the device drivers. It's basically it's just enough of the operating system to actually boot, so that you can go into it and try to fix any problems. Maybe you can go in and just make a few edits or delete something, and that will make things better. The next thing you can try is something called system restore. So system restore tries to put the computer back to how it was whenever the last restore point was made. So you can try to, if you get a virus, or again, if your nephew or your kid does something stupid to the computer, you can try to put the computer back to a time before they had played with the computer. This only changes the applications settings. So if you installed Office, or if you installed antivirus software, that will all be gone. Your documents, your videos, that type of thing will not be. Now again, with this is very good for, like I say, if you install a piece of software, if you install something that's not good for your computer. Viruses, be a little careful about. Sometimes by going back to a previous restore point, it fixes the virus problem. Other times the virus is still there, and you'll just get it in another day or 2. I showed you how to use Task Manager. Again, like I say, whenever I sit at anybody's computer, I always open up Task Manager. You want to make sure that the CPU is nowhere near the 100% mark. So 80% or less is best. If the CPU is pegging out, if it's sitting there at 100% all the time, that computer has problems. It's just going to be a pain to work with. I showed you how to look at your RAM. So again, the computer can kind of use more RAM than it has. So if you have a gig of RAM, it can use 1.5 gigs of RAM. It uses something called a page file to do that. Remember, although this works, it slows down your computer tremendously. So if you have a gig of RAM and you see that your computer is using 1.5 gigs of RAM, you need to best bet is just to upgrade the computer to 2 gigs of RAM. So if you're seeing that it's using more RAM than it has, just upgrade the computer. It's really the best. I also showed you how you can look at the applications that are currently running. If an application freezes, you can go in and you can just kill that application. I also showed you the processes. So the processes are the little, basically the little pieces of software that make the bigger pieces of software work. So let's say Microsoft Outlook may have a few processes that make it work. You can go into these individual processes. You can see how much CPU they're using, how much memory they're using, and right then and there you can kill that individual process. So sometimes things just hang up, and if you go in and you kill some process that's using all of your RAM or CPU, that may fix the problem. We talked about the hard drive. So we go in, remember you need at least 10% of your hard drive free for your computer to work properly. So if you have a 100 gig hard drive, you should have 10 gigs of free space on that hard drive. The computer needs to be able to write stuff to the hard drive and pull it out, little temporary files and log files and all that. And if you don't have 10% space, it just doesn't work very well. So I showed you how to go in. You can do a disk cleanup. You can defragment the drive, check for errors, etc. You don't need to do this a lot, but if you do need to do this, it's a very useful tool. Again, as I talked about, the bane of our existence are these startup services. So these little pieces of software and services that start up when the computer starts up. Adobe and QuickBooks thinks this is cute, but it just causes a mess for most of us. So I showed you how to go to MSConfig and selectively decide what will start up when the computer starts up. I showed you how to go into the registry and clean out the registry files that start up applications and services. And I showed you that startup folder. At Start Programs, Startup folder, anything in that Startup folder will be launched when the computer boots up. So if you put a link in there when the computer boots up, that link will trigger when the computer boots. And then finally, I showed you computer management. Computer management really is the core to most of the tools that you're going to use to administer the computer system. You have Event Viewer. So Event Viewer is the log file for the computer, for the Windows PC. If you go in there and you see big red X's, it means that the computer is having problems. And if you're having problems, this might be the reason for it. So you can look at whatever that thing in the log file is and see if you can figure out the problem from that. There's local users and groups. Again, this is where you can create users, you can reset passwords, you can put people into groups. So, you know, if you have a user that needs to be able to install software onto the computer, you can then put that user into the administrator group, and the administrator group has permission to do things like install software on the computer. I showed you Device Manager. Device Manager is a little application that shows you how the operating system sees the hardware on the computer. So if you go in and there's a big red X by one of your pieces of hardware, well, that's a problem. You know, either there may be a physical problem with the hardware, or you just may need a driver. A lot of times I see people reinstall operating systems and then they forget about the device drivers. So they don't understand why they can't get on the internet, and the reason is because they did not install the device driver for their network card. Also, you can go in, you know, if you're having bigger problems with your computer, with the hardware of your computer, if you know you have specific hardware on your computer, or it's supposed to be there, and then you open up Device Manager and it's nowhere in that list, it may mean you're having physical problems with the computer. We talked about disk management. So disk management, again, it shows things like partitions, whether to create dynamic drives, a whole bunch of stuff about the hard drive on the computer. So this isn't where you go to clean up a hard drive. You use the other application to do that. This is where you go in to create partitions, to format hard drives, etc. And then finally, we looked at services. So again, these are little pieces of software that start up when the computer starts up, usually pertaining to the operating system itself. So things like terminal services, you know, HTTP client, that type of stuff. Services can either start automatically, manually, or they can be disabled. So again, if you're coming in behind somebody, you know, you're coming to a computer, it's been in use for 3 or 4 years, and you want to do something like remote desktop to it, and that is not working, it may be because terminal services has been disabled. So you can go into services and you see what services are, you know, start up automatically, manually, or disabled. Now, all of these tools that I showed you today have been around since Windows 2000 Professional. So these are not, you know, you don't have to worry that, oh, I showed you on one operating system and it'll be really different on another operating system. Basically, Windows 7, Windows Vista, Windows XP, and Windows 2000 are basically the same. Of course, with Microsoft, with Windows, every time they come out with the new operating system, they change it just a little bit, but they don't change it very much. You know, if you want to go to Task Manager, you just go down to the little taskbar, right-click, and do Task Manager. It has always been that way. If you want to go to Computer Management, you just right-click on My Computer, you go to Manage. If you want to do the hard drive, you know, you right-click on your C drive, and then you go to Properties. All of these things have stayed the same, you know, for the past 10 years. So, you know, don't worry. You know, I showed you one operating system. It will work on all the other operating systems. You know, with this batch of tools, like I said, you really, in the real world, you can probably fix about 70% of all problems that you have using these tools. I mean, they show you what's going on with the computer. Now, on top of these tools, you can use 2 additional pieces of software. They're free, but they're not from Microsoft, to make your life a little easier. There's something called CC, or C Cleaner. C Cleaner goes in and it can get rid of all the temporary files on the computer. It can go through the registry and clean up the registry a good bit. It's a very useful tool. Again, it's very free to make your computer run a little better. And there's something called defragler. So I showed you how to defragment your hard drive, the built-in piece of software to defragment your hard drive. For some reason with Windows, that's not really a great tool to use for defragmenting the hard drive. It's quirky, it fails a lot, it's not always the best tool to use. But this tool called defragler will work better to defragment your hard drive. So if you want to defragment your hard drive, download Defraggler, down at the resources. We'll have a link to it, and that is a better way to defragment your hard drive. So that's it. Like I say, managing just a little desktop computer, it is not that difficult. It's not that hard. Just use these tools that I showed you, and again, you can fix probably at least 70% of your problems. I mean, seriously. So, as you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy. This is Using Windows Tools for Troubleshooting, and I hope to see you at the next class.